Hi guys, Matt here with another Haltech workshop feature. Today we're here in Lake Havasu, Arizona in the United States of America to speak to Gabe at SNP Speed Innovations. So how long have you been actually building cars and working on engines and that sort of thing?
Oh, I've been doing it my whole life. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, my dad got a 55 Ford F100. And watching him do big smoky burnouts going up and down the street, that did it for me. I was like, that's what I want to do. That's cool. That's what I want to do. Mm-hmm.
What do you specialize here in Havasu?
Well, in Havasu, we do a lot of desert stuff, a lot of boat stuff. I mean, it's the perfect place to be if you have the water toys and the desert toys. You always have something to do. There's a pretty good sized lake, so you got watercrafts and big boats. We've been 140 plus. 25% throttle to 140 is pretty impressive. And big 38-foot boat with 2,000 horsepower motors. That's kind of neat. But we got a rock crawler right here, and a couple of years ago I was tuning on one similar to this, and we're going up and down this wash, and we were tuning not a Haltech, so I have to look down and I have to look at I am the data logger, so I have to read the screen, and I have to read the O2 sensor, and I got to see what's going on. It's a turbo car just like this, and we're making passes under this overpass. So this overpass had 4 run-throughs and had a wall, which is a support. This supports from lane to lane, and we're shooting in between these walls. So we're cruising along and we're doing full throttle blast, and again I'm looking down because I am the data logger, so I'm looking down thinking this should have a Haltech in it, and at some point it will. And we're going at it, and the guy goes left to right, and I go, oh crap, right. So he jerks the wheel like this, and we start to roll over sideways. So as I look at him, I see the wall that we're going right towards, and I'm thinking we're going to be a taco. This thing's going to fold us right in the middle. We're going to be a taco. So luckily he didn't try to overcorrect it too much, and we did roll it right next to the wall. We scraped the wall and scraped the bottom of the underpass with one of the tires.
Oh man.
So after that, it's like, okay, we gotta have something with a data logger. I'll sit right here with the laptop.
Gabe, this is a pretty cool golf buggy.
Yes.
So tell me about what you'd use this particular car for. Like, what's its main purpose?
Well, hauling golf clubs.
Golf clubs, yeah.
Going out to the 9th hole or all that good stuff. Maybe sipping on some cocktails. But
got it.
This is actually a rock crawler. 3RZ powered, Toyota 3RZ powered rock crawler. This guy's actually very competitive. Did really, really well last year at King of the Hammers event. So it's a 2.7 liter 3RZ motor, turboed, T3, T4, nothing too special about that. It's making probably a little over 300 horsepower, probably about 15 pounds of boost. We just installed an Elite 750 in it, got rid of the old antiquated SDS computer that was in it. And moves along pretty good. Lightweight chassis. These little golf tires that are on it now are not really for it,
So these tires are just for moving around the shop?
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't fit on a trailer.
Ah, fair call.
Yeah.
So as a rock crawler, my understanding is you probably don't need to go all that fast. You've got a lot of reduction gears going on. What's the purpose of needing 300 horsepower in a rock crawler?
Well, the type of challenge that they do, yes, it's not needed to have as much power in some areas.
Okay. In
some areas, yes. In some areas, they get into these the dry lake beds, and they do about 100, 120
miles
flat
an
out.
hour.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
flat out. So it's kind of a dual purpose. Yep.
Nearly 200 kilometers an hour. That's
moving.
Boogieing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the best of both worlds. I mean, we'll do high boost, low boost. We'll have a fuel enrichment, which I've done some practicing on with the trophy light guys, but the base fuel enrichment over time. So if he's really flat out for a long period of time, we'll just make it a little richer, and then maybe
just
a little
try and
richer. Keep the chambers cool, just keep the motor alive a little bit. Yep, exactly.
As you're into the power for longer periods of time.
Yep.
Pretty smart. I like what you're doing there. So being a rock crawler, what are the sorts of differences that you might see in a buggy like this versus something that just goes to the sand dunes?
Okay. Well, something that just goes to sand dunes just goes. I mean, it doesn't have to have the suspension that this does. It doesn't have to have the low range transfer case and everything, because you just go out there and just go. I mean, you put it to it and and hammer down, turn the boost up and have some fun. And these guys are more technical. There's a lot more suspension work to it, and there's a lot more gear changing, and there's a lot more driving to it.
Right, so because you've got both this super, well, I guess pretty high speed stuff that you might go through a wash, and then you've also got really technical low speed, what's the kind of ratio between the high speed, between the high and the low on the transfer case? How much are we changing gear ratios there?
I think these guys get down to 4 to 1, 6 to 1.
Wow.
I mean, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the difference between high speed and low speed is just light years.
Tons of differences. You can put this down in the lowest gear and get out of it and walk faster than it's driving by itself.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and that's low.
And it will also do 120 mile an hour.
Yeah, it'll do 100, 120 depending on where it's at and how much boost we turn it up to, but yeah, it'll do about that.
And one thing that I have noticed about the sand out here is it's super silty, very, very fine. Does that cause any issues with the electronics or with the wiring or anything like that, even the suspension?
Not if it's a Haltech.
Okay.
So Haltechs are sealed.
Okay.
So you can submerge them in water and drive it all day long if you needed to. So that's why we use the Haltech Elite series for all of our off-road stuff. And it's robust. It's been race proven, Baja 1000 proven. So that's tough.
That's true.
That's
a
beating, you know.
Yep.
And it can survive all the harsh environments out there because it is a sealed computer.
Yeah, I think especially those single connector ECUs that it's just very simple. There's not a lot to them. They're not getting overly complex.
Keep it basic, keep it simple, you know.
You get everything you need, a little bit of data logging in there.
Exactly. And you can data log anything you need for a race like that.
Yeah,
you know.
okay. Now I do want to talk a little bit about some of these rock crawlers that you do. I see a lot of 4-cylinder Toyota engines. I'm pretty fond of that engine. I've done quite a bit of work on the 2RZ and the 3RZ engine in some drag racing applications. It's really cool to see them in the off-road. Tell me about why you're using that engine so much in these off-road buggies.
Well, I used to work for LC Engineering, and they are the performance leader for the 2RZ, 3RZs, the 22Rs, the Toyota trucks, stuff like that. So I worked for them for almost 10 years. Started off in the header and exhaust department. I designed exhaust systems, designed headers, built bend charts for production. Then I got bored. I went into doing cylinder heads. So I did cylinder heads for a while. We did cylinder heads for Chris Radel, World Racing back in the day, and he used a 3RZ motor, but we did a different version of it. 2RZ, 3RZ motor is typically a time and chain driven motor. We converted these to time and belts.
And why did you do that? What's the advantage of a belt driven?
Well, the lower timing chain sprocket seems to let go at about 9,500 RPMs. Okay. We're able to spin these 11,500.
Wow.
You have more control of the belt than you do a chain, and you don't have the problem of breaking the lower gears.
Yep.
But the fact that we made about 1,800 horsepower with 70 pounds of boost and 11,500 RPMs with a stock cylinder head, stock block, stock crank, that kind of proves the durability of the motor and how much power you can really get out of it.
Just going to back you up a little bit there and say 1,800 horsepower?
Yeah.
4-cylinder?
Yes.
How many RPM?
11,500.
11,000 RPM?
70
pounds of boost.
Yes.
Sign me up.
And this was done about 13, 14 years ago.
So Gabe, tell me about this bad boy.
Well, this is the 1FZ 4.5 liter motor. Did a complete engine build on it. As we were getting into the build, the customer said, what can you do to add some power? So we'll put a blower on it, put a Haltech on it, and have some fun.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yep. So we got lower compression pistons, head studs, chromatic head gasket, custom grind cams from web cams. That's about it, really.
Yeah, one thing I can imagine with this supercharger is she's pretty thirsty.
Yeah.
I imagine all I can see is driving along connected to the fuel bowser.
Pretty much. Yeah, we do that whole Fast and Furious thing and bring that fuel tanker behind you and just keep a steady line going to it.
Yeah, I reckon that's what it needs to be.
Yep.
On a bit of a side note, I noticed you've got this logo, SNP Speed Innovations, and you've got this really cool logo on the wall there. Tell me, what's your purpose for being in business? Why are you here?
Well, as our motto says, we're here to make the world a faster place. So to me, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a rock crawler, it could be a sand car, it could be a desert car, a boat. It doesn't matter. If it pumps air, we want to make it better or faster. Don't matter what it is. You know, when I first got into becoming a Haltech dealer, I actually put it was a Sprint 500s and 8 cars that are in Disney World, and amphibious cars that make about 62 horsepower.
So
we did 10 cars total.
Tell me about these things. You got 10 amphibious.
Yes. These are old
teacups or something?
amphibious teacups. These are old early 60s Amphicars.
Okay.
So they're convertibles, rear engine.
Yeah.
They have a transaxle with a sort of a dual transfer case kind of thing that drives 2 props in the rear. So you have a engagement and non-engagement. So you have normal drive. Yeah. And then you have prop drive.
Tell me about some of the other stuff you've done.
I guess my range goes from, we had Fred Pope's cars, 66 El Camino drag car, probably making close to 2,800 horsepower, twin turbo, 16 injector, methanol deal. This rock crawler here, and it's probably making 350 horse. The sand drag out there, the 3RZ, that's probably making about 9 to the wheels, probably close to 1,100 horsepower. I tell people we're making over 270 horsepower per cylinder, and they're like, "Well, that's a lot." Well, it is.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. You know, but and then we got the Fire Guys Racing, Desert Racing, crawlers, hot rods. It doesn't really matter what it is. We just want to make everything cooler and faster.
I think last time we spoke, you were doing some work in Colorado.
Oh, that was neat. That was a really, really neat project. So. The Fire Guys, again, the guys, they just had their car here a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and we put Elite 2500 on it. Those guys are firemen in Aspen, Colorado. So a firefighter is not a full 7-day, 5-day a week. I mean, so what do you do in your free time? Well, they both work on a road race track. Okay. So this road race track is privately owned, privately maintained. Mm-hmm. Yep. So only the car owners own it and operate it. So these guys work on the track. There's 33 road race cars, and they have a little 1ZZ motor in it, if I remember right. It's a Toyota Celica motor. Yep. Rear engine. These are SCCA spec class cars. Okay.
So open wheelers.
Open wheels.
So they look like a little.
No, actually no. They're closed wheels. It looks like a little Mons car.
Okay. Like a Le Mans car, not like a go-kart, but more like something with a shell.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's cantilever suspension, everything. I mean, they were really, really cool cars.
Sounds super cool. Yeah.
So we converted 33 cars to, what do we put them, Elite 750s in 3.5 days.
Wow. So hang on, 33 cars?
33 cars.
So that's 11 cars a day.
Yep, roughly.
That's moving.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And we tuned every one of them.
Wow.
So on our last day, and I've got some videos and some pictures, we had a total of, I want to say right around 11 cars that were in line and running, idling, waiting for the driver to get back, hop in the next car, go take it out, hop in the next car, take it out, hop in the next car, and just go.
Wow, that's awesome. You mentioned the Fire Guys Racing. I've seen a little bit of press from those guys from Baja.
Yep.
What happened down there?
Well, they have a Jeep Speed Wrangler. We did a Haltech install on. Okay. And
750?
750, yep. And we did some desert tuning, probably 30 minutes, we're done. Runs pretty good, runs really, really good. So one of the cool things about the modern era of tuning is you can remote tune. So they finished up their chassis prepping, everything they had to do. They went down to Mexico, called me up, and we remoted in while they're in Mexico. And I said, take it out, joyride it, have some fun, bring it back. I'll remote in, take a good look at the data log and see what's going on. So they were pretty excited about that.
Very cool. How did they go in that event?
They won. They awesome. Won their class in the Baja 1000.
Yeah, Gabe, we shared a video of yours on this truck a couple of years back on Facebook and got like 500,000 views in a day or two. Tell us a bit more about it.
Well, this is a sand drag truck. 4-cylinder sand drag truck. A very good friend and customer of mine down in Mexico. He is the fastest 4-cylinder sand drag truck in Mexico.
Okay. And so what's the history of the truck? Did you build it or did it come to you as a built thing?
Well, I mean, I've been building his engines, building his cylinder heads for a long, long time. I've known him for over 15 years. Okay. Been a long, good friend, customer kind of thing. He's been racing this truck since it was a stock pickup truck since the late 80s.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, 4-cylinder, carbureted, nitrous, and then slowly evolved into this.
So this really did start as a standard Toyota pickup, had a standard firewall, had all the interior
everything,
panels and all that, and it's just slowly evolved into an out-and-out drag racing beast. All right, so tell me a bit about what you've done to the engine.
Well, this is a Toyota 3RZ motor. It's a 2.7 liter engine. It's got a lot of good rods in it. It's got Potter rods. It's got Arias pistons in it. It's got SuperTech valve springs, SuperTech valves, 1 millimeter larger intake and exhaust. It's got a set of webcams in it. My port worked a long time ago, and then we changed the valving in a little bit, so it's been touched up since. Originally, it was just built while I was with LC Engineering years ago, and that's where I met him. And once I got into doing my own business, he kind of followed me because I took it to a different level than they would normally do. Okay. So we're making probably close to 1,100 crank, a little over 260, 270 horsepower per rod. We're making close to about 900 horsepower, 40 pounds of boost. 40 pounds,
and I mean, this is a big huffer here. Tell us about the turbo. Is this how it's always run, or is this a new setup?
This is a new setup. Yep. The car came to me probably about a year ago, maybe a little longer than that. But we did a complete engine build on it. Bumped the compression up, like I said, bigger valves, changed the valve springs in it. We went from a GT40 94 turbo, 67 millimeter turbo, to a Precision 76, 75 turbo. So
quite a bit bigger.
We want to turn it up a little bit.
Yeah, quite a bit bigger.
Yeah, we're shooting for 200 horsepower more, and we pretty much achieved that plus.
Oh, yeah. I think you achieved that pretty quickly.
Yep.
And what are you using to measure that? Are you using any sort of specific sensors on there?
Oh, that's the huge benefit to running a Haltech is that you can run whatever you want, however you want. So on this truck here, we have an Elite 1500.
Yep.
And we're running back pressure sensors. We're running obviously your basic, air temp, coolant temp. We're also running coolant pressure sensors. Okay. We've blown head gaskets in this before, and we can watch that in the data log. And we're building excess amount of pressure. Information is everything. The more sensors you have, the more information you have, the more you can fix, find, or make it better. So we have transmission pressure sensors in it for the torque converter, torque converter pressure, line pressure sensors. I mean, everything we can measure, we got it in there. I think we got one channel left.
Okay. So just on that coolant pressure sensor, I know on these things, when you start stuffing too much boost into them, you do lift the head a little bit.
Starts to lift the head. And on this one here, on this last engine build, we did go to bigger head studs.
Yep.
Machined to block, put 1/2-inch head studs, and Brad over at QMP did a real nice CNC hone on it.
But it's still decked, it's not O-ringed?
Oh no, stock block.
Stock block.
Stock cylinder head, stock crank. Not O-ringed at all.
Okay.
Just 1/2-inch head studs. Figure push your luck before we take it to that level.
That makes sense. And so you just monitor coolant pressure, and so long as that's not going through the roof,
and once we see a problem, but I mean, we've ran 40, 41 pounds of boost continuously, and we really had a problem so far. Yep. So
that makes sense. Gasket-wise, just an
normal SA gasket.
Yep.
So
nothing special, really,
nothing
in regards
special,
to the
really.
head gaskets and.
No, everything's off the shelf. Just nothing special. The pistons were kind of custom on because we were chasing a specific bore size.
Yep.
But other than that, no.
What kind of fuel are you running?
VPC16.
Okay, so just gasoline, basically.
Nothing special about it.
Yep.
Nothing special, but the truck was built for a specific class, drag racing again. The first day we showed up in Mexico with it, we went to a track rental, and one of his competitors were there. Nitrous, a Jeep. That's all he races against his Jeeps. All 6-cylinders. 6-cylinder class, but he races a 4-cylinder in it. The guy blew his motor up trying to make it faster and faster, trying to compete with this. That guy was normally slower than he is. We showed up, and in drag racing is 100 yards. So it's how fast you can go in 100 yards. It's drag racing, right?
Right, yep.
Well, he would normally run at this track at about 420, 425. Right off the trailer, we did a 4.0.
Oh, wow.
So it's gotten to the point to where now he shows up, nobody in his class shows up. He gets the King of the Hill trophy for being the fastest guy at the racetrack.
Right, okay.
So that's pretty much all he does with it.
Now, when you say drag strip, are we talking tarmac, burnout box, typical drag strip here?
All sand.
Okay, so when I think drag strip, I'm thinking you've got Jason Miller or someone prepping the track with the VHT and making it sticky, and you've got the lights and all this, you're thinking, no, this is a sand dune that's somewhat flat. Still got a tree, but that's about it.
Yep. So I've done a lot of drag racing. I used to drag race years ago. I think I won in 2006, won an NHRA Wally. I have a Wally, a Sport Compact. I have a lot of drag racing customers. I love drag racing. This is a completely different deal.
So how do you do that? How do you deal with things like traction when you've got sand rather than a prep track?
You have to wrap your mind around the environment, whatever it is. I mean, I do a lot of desert stuff, a lot of crawling stuff. So you always have to try to modify your thought process as to what you would normally do on this vehicle versus this vehicle in this application. So the way the sand drag stuff works is in drag racing on tarmac, on the asphalt, you always have to prep. So after so many prep passes, they get out there and they prep the track, or they should at least.
Sure.
Okay. Sand drag racing is similar. They'll get 3-4 passes and then they get the tractor out and then they drag it.
Okay.
So they make the track flat again. But there's no burnout box. So what they do is kind of different. So in tarmac drag racing, you do burnout, back up, find your line. They don't do a burnout, but they go past the start line, they pack the dirt down, back up on top of their marks, and then they line it up and go. So it's a little bit different, but similar.
They put a groove down,
exactly,
like you would.
They pack the dirt down, so this way when it does launch, and this is 4-wheel drive. So yes, it is 4-wheel drive. That explains the knobbies on the front.
This was my question. I looked in there, I could see a diff down there, and I was a little bit scratching my head because I see there's radials on the there's slicks on the back. And yet there's a diff in the front as well. That blew my mind a little bit.
So about 4 months ago, we were racing in Mexico. And the track it's only lit to the finish line. And it's not lit in the shutdown at all. We can't see anything. And this is on the other side of the sand dunes in Glamis. On the other side, right where it ends is right where this racetrack is.
In Mexico. Side.
In Mexico. So we're the first one's up, only one's up at this point. He makes a pass, goes back across the finish line, and then disappears. We don't see him. We're standing on the start line waiting for him, and waiting, and waiting. Where did he go? So we start jogging down there, and as we start getting past the start line, one of the spectators on the side of the road says, you should have seen him. He was probably about 5-6 feet off the ground. What do you mean? Well, what we didn't notice is that when the guy was prepping the track and the tractor, he was going from right lane to left lane, right lane to left lane, right lane to left lane, and built a curb, a wall at the end of the finish line that we couldn't see. So he went across the finish line about 100, 120, and 100 yards, so he's moving. Catches his berm, gets him up in the air, lands on the front end, breaks the front U-joint caps, snaps the drive shaft, goes underneath. It starts to trench to the point to where it took the transfer case, ripped it sideways, shredded the transfer case. Then the drive shaft finally went through, and it tried to windmill through the tunneling there. So it just destroyed the tunneling in there. So we show up. And he thought the truck was on fire because we have sensors down there. So there was a small electrical fire, not fire, but melted some wires. He gets out, doors open, and I see a drive shaft sticking straight up in the middle of the car, up to about here.
Wow.
Could you imagine if that was on the other side of the car?
No, thanks. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Just on a total side note, I do see a pair of nitrous solenoids down here. Are you running nitrous as well as boost on this thing?
Well, through the Haltech, we control the nitrous, but we're only using that through boost control. So, I'm sorry, launch control. So we just use it to bring up the boost, bring up the RPMs, and then with the Haltech, everything's configurable, which is why I love it so much. We can configure when to turn the nitrous on, when to turn it off. We never use it during the run. It's making more than enough power. We don't need it. We just use it to bring the trans brake up, that's all.
So being automatic, you really just want to be able to get the engine RPM up so you can come up on the trans brake, overcome the converter.
That's right.
Got it. That makes sense. And that's pretty common on small capacity engines. You see the same thing on 2Js as well, where you got to use nitrous just to bring the thing up on the converter.
We run about 125 horsepower worth of nitrous to it on the trans brake, and it comes up right now. Well, just a little bit, Yeah.
So on the steering wheel, we've got a couple of buttons, green and red. What do these do for me?
Well, on the right, you have a trans brake.
Okay.
And on the left, you have creep, boost, bump creep.
Okay, so that's for moving into the staging line.
That's right. Which is a little difficult on this because you're in sand. So it takes us a little while to try to fine tune it because on a tarmac asphalt car, you would hit the bump and the car would lurch forward. On a sand car, it just spins the tires and you go down. That's right.
Yeah, okay, it's a bit of a challenge.
Not very much forward moving momentum.
Okay, so you want to use more of that trans brake creep control rather than the bump.
That's right. And then fine tune that so it's very gentle.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's cool. And I've got some buttons under here. You probably can't see it there because of the shifter, but
Yep. Some of that was for the dump valves, dump valve bypass, so that would not come on if we wanted to, so we can try to lock it in, lock it out, that kind of thing. We have the shift solenoid there. We have an emergency battery switch there that he can kill internally instead of the one outside. We have one outside, of course, but he can hit that as an emergency.
Okay. I got a, was this a...
Yep, that's it there.
This bad boy right here.
Yep.
What else have I got? I've got my buttons up here for obviously starting, ignition, water pump.
Yeah, so belt-driven water pump.
Okay.
Yep. But we actually have better control, especially when we're coming back down the return lane. We had a little bit of a problem with the RPMs not being high enough, not spinning the water pump enough, and the engine temperatures being pretty high. But we've changed a lot of his staging techniques, so we don't build as much engine temperature when he comes into the start line. Also changed some stuff inside the tune, made it a lot better than it was before. But yeah, we have water pump. We'll have shift up there for the shift solenoid right there to your right. So the Haltech controls it. It's a 2-speed power glide, so the Haltech controls when we shift it. And on most drag racing, we'll shift over RPM. And this we shift over time.
Okay.
Because we want more wheel speed before we shift. We want more forward moving momentum before we shift, other than just RPM. Because it is sand, you're constantly spinning.
Okay, so I guess that makes sense because you've got four-wheel drive, so wheel speed could be telling you anything because they're spinning.
We could hit our RPM, but
similarly.
And in the sand it's different because it's not like it'll just hit your rev and then you hit your rev limiter and you hit your next gear. In the sand, it actually hesitates and it lingers for a while at a higher RPM, and I think this one we shifted right around 75, 8,000, something like that.
And I imagine in the sand, if you hit that limiter, the power drops out of it and the thing drops down.
It does, and you're already in the sand anyway, so you can't really afford to lose that.
Yep.
So we did some testing and did some 60-foot testing and found that we shift over time in certain tracks because it's sand, so it's way different than tarmac because you can go to 3 different tracks and the thing runs 3 different times because of the altitude in each track, obviously, but you have different sand qualities. So it's just like different track prep.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting. And what else? Just standard set of gauges here. No dash?
No, that's it. All he needs to see is just his RPM, and that's about all he's got time to look at is just RPM.
Yeah, okay, cool.
If he sees something on the start line, he can look around at his gauges and stuff like that. Maybe come down a return road. If it's getting a little hot, he can shut it down if he needs to. But we have a lot of safety features inside the computer, a lot of engine limiter functions. So if it starts to overboost, the engine will go into early rev limit, oil pressure starts to drop, rev limit, or a kill. Coolant pressure sensors we talked about earlier, we have a coolant pressure sensor in here. So if the coolant pressure sensor starts to get close to our target boost pressure, then we can start to drop that off a little bit if we need to, or turn the boost down, or rev limit however we want.
Yeah, so you're really using the ECU to do a bit of engine protection as well?
We want it to do as much as we need to. Try to take all that stuff away from the driver. Let the driver just drive. Let the computer do what it does.
Okay, well that's really cool, man. I really appreciate that, and we really appreciate the partnership with you. We'll put the links for all of Gabe's social media into the link of this video. I'm Matt from Haltech. I'm signing off from Lake Havasu, and we'll see you next time.